Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you how to paint hydrangeas using watercolor and using ink. So I picked up these flowers from the Columbia Road Flower Market here in London. They have started to curl a little bit, but I'm going to show you how to paint it when it's fully bloomed and fresh. So I'm just using this Winsor and Newton watercolor brush, this Japanese calligraphy brush, and I'm also using a Winsor and Newton watercolor angled brush. So you'll need that if you want to get in like really small details and lines. Okay, so again, I'm using a wet on wet technique where you wet the watercolor paper first and you apply the wet ink or the wet watercolor substance onto the wet paper. And I will put all of the paints in the paper that I use in the description box so you'll know what type to use if you want to try this out. Okay, so I'm just dipping my brush in ink and I'm using the ink by Liquitex. I'm using two shades, a magenta shade, and I'm also using an ink by Ecoline in a light pink shade. So you can see I'm taking my brush to the side and I'm just slowly painting just like a small piece of the flower. So I'm just going in these different types of shapes to mimic the hydrangeas flower. And to me, when you're drawing flowers, especially if you want to get really good at drawing flowers and you want to get make it look realistic but still have that very whimsical watercolor effect, it's always good to have the actual flower in front of you and draw from a 3D flower versus trying to draw from a picture. You really can get like the shape of the flower and the tones and the shape of like the back side of the flower and all, like everything like that, if you are drawing from real life. Okay, so again, I'm just going in different shapes with this brush, using the side of the brush, and always try to make sure your watercolor paper is wet, but it's wet only in the area that you want the ink to go. So you can see I'm just painting water in a few different spots. If I had to put water like all over this paper in a circle, then once I put the ink down, the ink would have started to run together and it just would have been like one big blob of watercolor paint. So I'm really taking my time and going in, painting each petal. And I'm also using the tip of the brush for some like size of the flower. Okay guys, so you can see I kind of have this ball shape. It is a few petals peeking out from the top, but I'm just going to get in close so you can see the details of how this ink is falling into place. And I am paying attention to the shape that I'm drawing it in. So I'm starting to kind of spring out on the outside, and I know you might be thinking that, what am I going to do to the middle? Because you can see that this white area is in the middle. For this type of flower, and I'll show you guys where you'll see at the end, or you can rewind and see when the ball of flowers is just, when the hydrangeas are just sitting by itself, that there's a lot of light and darkness to it. So you have the really pink look on the outside of the flowers, and then, on the inside of the flowers, and then on the outside it's like a really lighter kind of blush pink color. So that white is kind of representing that blush pink color, and that white is also giving like the light hues in the way the light is hitting the flower. So I'm not really focused on filling in every little bitty detail of the flower. The watercolor is kind of taking it where it wants to go and telling the story of the darkness and the lightness of the flower for it. And as you can see also, I'm not using a lot of ink. So I only put like a few drops of ink on the side. So that's the great part about drawing flowers. And if I wanted to, I can scan this painting in, repeat it in Photoshop, and then make a completely different type of pattern or print, or make it look like a bouquet of hydrangeas if I wanted to. So you don't need a lot of paper if you're trying to make like a big print or something, especially if it's like a print design for fabric. Okay, so now I'm going to go into drawing the stem of the flower. Now I'm not mimicking this stem verbatim. I'm just lightly wetting the paper in the shape of any type of stem, and I'm using a liquid acrylic ink, and I'm just going to lightly throw down some paint in the shape that I'm placing this water for this stem. And I'm just going to do that with the same brush. I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit, but I still want that pink color to come through. So I'm taking the brush on the side, and I'm just creating a few ridges at the top of this stem. And then I'm going to swipe it down to get more pigment onto the paper. And guys, this ink is a turquoise color ink, but I also dipped my brush into a little bit of like a forest green watercolor, and this watercolor is by Winsor & Newton. It's just their solid Winsor & Newton paint Cotman watercolors. So I'm just taking the tip of the brush and I'm just creating these really loose fluid lines for the stems. If I had a darker green, or even like some type of black, I would probably mix this green into black just to make the stem a little bit deeper in color. Okay, now I'm just putting a few lines of watercolor under each petal of the hydrangeas, and I'm going to dip my brush into the lighter pink ink and just create a few lines so that it looks like the stems of the flower are going straight into the stem of the full bouquet. And I should say the stems of the petals rather are going into the stem of the full flower. And just a few light lines, guys. I really don't want to make this look too stiff. I mean, you can just imagine this like on a piece of silk or something. This would just look very fluid and very, very beautiful. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is just go, because now you can tell where the petals are, but you might not be able to define it too much. So I'm just going in with the gouache paint, and I'm just creating these small little dots in between each petal so you can just define the flowers, and I'm not going to do this for all of them, just for a few. Okay guys, and that's it. That is how you paint a bouquet of hydrangeas. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back next week with a new video. Please subscribe so you don't miss out, especially if you are trying to learn how to use watercolors. I will have more videos in the upcoming weeks showing you different ways to use watercolors and to use inks. I will talk to you next time. Ciao.